When someone ignores you, it can be a deeply painful experience. The silence, the absence, it makes us question ourselves, our worth, and the relationships we've invested in. In those moments, it's easy to feel alone, unimportant, or even invisible. But I want to offer you something different rather than seeing this as a sign of personal failure. Perhaps it's an invitation to reflect on something greater. When someone ignores us, the pain can be far more intense than we might initially expect. It's not just about the absence of communication, but about the emotions that are triggered by that silence. At its core, being ignored hits us at a fundamental level of our emotional well-being. It threatens our sense of connection and belonging. It stirs deep-rooted fears of being invisible, unworthy, or forgotten, emotions that can be hard to shake off. Human beings are wired for connection. We thrive when we feel seen, heard, and valued by those around us. This is not just a preference, it's a biological imperative. Our need for social interaction and connection is tied to our survival instincts, and when that connection is severed or ignored, it can evoke feelings of anxiety and distress. The simple act of being ignored can feel like a rupture in the fabric of our emotional safety. It's like an invisible wall being built between us and someone we care about, and that wall creates a sense of isolation. We may start to wonder, what did I do wrong? Why am I not worth their time or attention? When we're ignored, we're often left in the dark, struggling to make sense of the situation. The silence can be deafening, and our minds can spiral with all sorts of assumptions. Did I say something wrong? Am I not important enough to deserve a response? Did I cross a line? What have I done to deserve this treatment? These questions only intensify the emotional pain, and we start to internalize it. It's not just the other person's actions that hurt, it's how we interpret those actions and what they imply about us. At the heart of this pain lies our vulnerability. When we allow ourselves to care about someone or to invest in a relationship, we open ourselves up to the possibility of being hurt. Vulnerability means putting ourselves in a position where we risk rejection or disappointment. Being ignored is often perceived as rejection, even if that's not the intent. Our vulnerability is exposed, and it feels like a deep wound, leaving us with a sense of powerlessness. But what makes it even more painful is the fact that we're often left without closure. Ignoring someone doesn't allow for a healthy resolution. It's a form of emotional abandonment without an explanation. We're left wondering if something is wrong with us, if the relationship has changed, or if we've been discarded. This ambiguity makes the pain even harder to manage because we can't pinpoint exactly what caused the distance. The emotional wound remains open, and without clarity, it's difficult to heal. Another layer to the pain of being ignored is the sense of rejection it breeds. We all crave validation from others. It's part of being human. When we're ignored, it feels as though our presence, our thoughts, and our feelings don't matter to the person we care about. This can chip away at our self-esteem, leading us to question our own worthiness of love and attention. We might start to feel as though we're not enough to be noticed, enough to be heard, or enough to be valued. This feeling of rejection can also trigger the fear of being alone. We may convince ourselves that if one person can ignore us, others might too. This is where the pain can spiral into fear, anxiety, and self-doubt. The more we let this fear grow, the harder it becomes to recover from the initial pain of being ignored. Our self-worth becomes intertwined with the behavior of others, and our emotional health begins to hinge on their actions. However, there's an important truth in this pain. It reveals the intensity of our need for connection, and that is not something to be ashamed of. The fact that we care enough to feel the sting of being ignored shows that we are fully human, that we are invested in the relationships we hold dear. It's a reminder of our capacity to love, to reach out, and to care deeply for others. The pain is a reflection of the depth of our emotional investment. In a way, this pain of being ignored is a mirror. It reflects not only the importance of our relationships, but also the depth of our emotional vulnerability. Rather than dismissing this pain as something to avoid or ignore, we can choose to embrace it. We can use it as an opportunity for self-reflection, asking ourselves why this particular relationship is so important, what we truly need from it, and how we can navigate the emotions that arise when we're ignored. In the end, the pain of being ignored is a complex, multifaceted experience. It touches on our need for validation, our fear of rejection, and our fundamental desire to connect with others. But by acknowledging the reasons behind the hurt, we can start to heal, not by waiting for the other person to act, but by reconnecting with our own worth and reminding ourselves that our value is not defined by how others treat us. Instead of letting the pain consume us, we can use it as a catalyst for growth, and self-discovery.self-worth is the foundation of our emotional and mental well-being. It's the internal belief that we are valuable, deserving of respect, love, and happiness regardless of external circumstances or how others treat us. It's an unwavering acknowledgement of our intrinsic value that is not contingent on achievements, appearance, or the opinions of others. And yet, it is often the most overlooked and underestimated aspect of our lives. When we feel ignored or rejected, it's easy for us to question our worth. We begin to wonder whether we are deserving of attention, care, and affection. We might tie our self-worth to the reactions we get from others, using their behavior as a barometer for our value. If someone ignores us, we may internalize it as a reflection of who we are, diminishing our self-esteem in the process. But this is where understanding the true importance of self-worth becomes essential. The dangers of external validation. We live in a world that often equates self-worth with external validation. From social media likes to praise at work or compliments from friends, we're conditioned to derive our sense of value from how others perceive us. This can be a dangerous path, as external validation is fleeting and subjective. It's dependent on the whims, judgments, and moods of other people, which are beyond our control. When we rely too heavily on external sources to define our worth, we risk becoming emotionally unstable. One harsh comment, one act of rejection, or one instance of being ignored can make us question everything about ourselves. Moreover, when we tie our self-worth to others' approval, we place ourselves at the mercy of their opinions. This often leads to people-pleasing behaviors, trying to meet the expectations of others at the expense of our own needs, desires, and values. But this doesn't lead to true happiness or fulfillment. It can result in feelings of inadequacy, resentment, and emotional exhaustion as we constantly chase after something that is ultimately out of our hands. Self-worth as an anchor in the storm. Self-worth acts as an emotional anchor in our lives. It's what allows us to weather the storms that inevitably come our way. When we encounter rejection, criticism, or being ignored, our internal sense of worth provides the strength to persevere. Rather than allowing the opinions or actions of others to define us, we draw on our own understanding of who we are and what we deserve. Self-worth doesn't guarantee that we won't feel hurt, but it does enable us to bounce back more quickly from setbacks and to maintain our emotional equilibrium. This anchor is especially important when we face situations where others' behavior is beyond our control. For instance, when we reach out to someone and they ignore us, our response can either be shaped by our sense of self-worth or by our insecurities. If we don't have a solid foundation of self-worth, we may spiral into self-doubt, wondering why we weren't good enough to receive a response. But if we cultivate a strong sense of self-worth, we can choose to see the situation with greater clarity, acknowledging that the other person's behavior is not a reflection of our value. We can remind ourselves that we are worthy of love, respect, and attention, no matter what others may or may not do. Self-worth is a practice, not a one-time achievement. It's important to recognize that self-worth isn't something we achieve once and then forget about. It's a continuous practice that requires consistent nurturing. In the same way we tend to our physical health or build intellectual knowledge, we must also tend to our emotional health. This means regularly checking in with ourselves, cultivating self-compassion, and challenging negative self-talk. Our self-worth can fluctuate, influenced by life events or interactions with others. But by developing practices that affirm our value, we can weather these ups and downs with greater resilience. Self-care is a vital component of this practice. When we engage in self-care activities, whether that's through exercise, mindfulness, healthy boundaries, or pursuing activities that bring us joy, we are reinforcing the message that we are worthy of care, attention, and love. Each act of self-compassion is a building block for a stronger sense of self-worth. The impact of self-worth on relationships. On the flip side, when we struggle with our self-worth, we may find ourselves tolerating disrespect or staying in relationships that are harmful. This is because we may believe, on some level, that we don't deserve better. We may fear being alone or worry that no one else will care for us. But when we cultivate a strong sense of self-worth, we can walk away from relationships that don't serve us and hold space for healthier connections. Self-worth is also central to our personal growth and development. It's the belief in ourselves that gives us the courage to pursue our goals, try new things, and step outside our comfort zones. When we recognize our value, we are more likely to take risks, speak up for ourselves, and engage in the pursuit of our passions and dreams. We stop allowing fear of failure, rejection, or judgment to hold us back because we know that our worth isn't tied to external outcomes. Success and failure are simply experiences that help us learn and grow, not measurements of who we are. It's also worth noting that when we know our own worth, we are better equipped to celebrate others' successes without jealousy or comparison. We no longer feel threatened by others' achievements because we are confident in our own value and journey. This fosters a sense of community, support, and mutual respect, rather than competition or insecurity. Misalignment in relationships, goals, or values can be a deeply unsettling experience. It occurs when our actions, feelings, or behaviors no longer match the core values, needs, or expectations that we hold dear. Misalignment can show up in many areas of life, whether it's in our personal relationships, our careers, or even within ourselves. It manifests as a subtle but persistent discomfort, a feeling that something is off or out of sync, yet we may not always immediately recognize its source. In the context of interpersonal relationships, misalignment is often most apparent when we feel misunderstood, disconnected, or unsupported by the people around us. When someone we care about ignores us, we might sense a deeper issue. Perhaps it's not just their behavior, but the way our values or needs no longer match up with theirs. This misalignment creates a dissonance that can be difficult to navigate because we're left questioning both the relationship and our own role within it. At the heart of any meaningful relationship lies a shared understanding, common values, and mutual respect. These foundational elements create a sense of belonging and connection. However, when misalignment occurs, these elements become fractured, leading to feelings of confusion, frustration, and emotional discomfort. Misalignment can occur when two people have differing expectations about the relationship. For instance, one person may want constant communication, while the other might value personal space and independence. When these needs aren't communicated or understood, the relationship can feel strained. It's like trying to walk in sync with someone who is moving at a different pace. The natural rhythm of the relationship is disrupted, and as a result, we may feel a sense of emotional distance. In some cases, misalignment can occur because of changes in priorities or life circumstances. As people grow and evolve, their needs, desires, and goals may shift. One person may find themselves seeking deeper connection and intimacy, while the other may focus on their career, personal growth, or other commitments. When these changes aren't addressed, the relationship can feel stagnant or disconnected. This type of misalignment often leads to feelings of neglect, hurt, or loneliness, as one person might feel ignored or abandoned, while the other is unaware of the shift in emotional needs. Misalignment as a sign of unspoken needs. One of the clearest signs of misalignment is the presence of unspoken needs or unaddressed feelings. When we are ignored or when communication breaks down, it's often a symptom of deeper unmet needs. These needs might be emotional, physical, or psychological, but they are often left unexpressed due to fear of vulnerability, conflict, or rejection. As a result, we internalize the misalignment, struggling to understand why things don't feel right, but unsure of how to express our discomfort. For example, if one person in a relationship feels neglected or ignored but doesn't communicate that need for attention or affection, the other person may remain unaware of the growing disconnection. This unspoken emotional gap creates a rift, and over time, the misalignment becomes more pronounced. The longer we avoid addressing our needs, the more likely it is that the emotional distance will increase. In relationships where both people are unsure of how to express their needs or feel hesitant to communicate, the result is often an escalating cycle of hurt and misunderstanding. Misalignment doesn't necessarily signify a lack of care or love. Sometimes it simply means that one or both parties are out of touch with their true needs, or that they have not taken the time to reflect on how their priorities have shifted. Addressing misalignment requires open and honest conversations about desires, boundaries, expectations, and feelings. Without these crucial dialogues, the misalignment will continue to grow, and the pain of being ignored, misunderstood, or disconnected will only deepen. Misalignment and personal growth. Misalignment can also occur within ourselves, particularly when our actions no longer reflect our values, goals, or identity. We might find ourselves in situations, jobs, or relationships that don't align with who we truly are or what we truly want. This internal misalignment can lead to feelings of dissatisfaction, confusion, and frustration. We may go through the motions, fulfilling obligations and meeting expectations, but feel a persistent sense of emptiness or disconnection from our authentic selves. When we experience this type of misalignment, it's a powerful signal that we are out of sync with our true desires and needs. It may indicate that we are compromising too much, sacrificing our values for the sake of others, or settling for a life that doesn't reflect who we really want to be. The discomfort we feel is our inner self trying to communicate that something isn't right, that we need to realign our actions with our core values. For example, someone might remain in a job that doesn't fulfill them because they feel financially secure, but deep down they know they are not pursuing their passions or contributing to the world in a meaningful way. This internal misalignment creates a sense of inner conflict and dissatisfaction. Alternatively, someone might stay in a relationship that no longer brings them joy or aligns with their values, simply because they fear being alone or because they've invested so much time and energy into it. In these moments, misalignment is a call to return to ourselves, to re-examine our goals, our desires, and the ways we are living our lives. It asks us to have the courage to make difficult choices, to let go of things that no longer serve us, and to take the necessary steps to realign ourselves with our authentic values. Misalignment in decision-making and boundaries. Misalignment also manifests in how we make decisions or set boundaries. When we are in a state of misalignment, we often make decisions that do not honor our true selves. We might prioritize others' needs or desires over our own, neglecting our own boundaries and values in the process. This can lead to resentment, burnout, and frustration. In relationships, for example, when we don't establish clear boundaries, we risk overextending ourselves and losing sight of what we truly need. In careers or personal projects, when we prioritize success or external approval over our own satisfaction, we can feel disconnected from our purpose. The process of setting and maintaining boundaries is an essential tool for addressing misalignment. Boundaries are not just about saying no to others, they are about saying yes to ourselves. They are a way of reinforcing our values and ensuring that we honor our needs, our time, and our energy. When we align our decisions with our values and set boundaries that reflect our true needs, we create a space for growth, fulfillment, and clarity. Misalignment as an opportunity for clarity. While misalignment can be painful, it also offers a tremendous opportunity for growth, clarity, and self-awareness. Misalignment is not just a problem to be fixed, it's a signal that something is not aligned in our lives, and it's calling us to pay attention. It urges us to take stock of our relationships, our goals, and our actions. Are we living authentically? Are we in alignment with our values and purpose? Are we compromising too much, or are we being true to ourselves? The discomfort of misalignment, while unpleasant, is often a necessary precursor to change. It's a moment of clarity in disguise, an invitation to pause, reflect, and make choices that will bring us back into alignment with our true selves. Sometimes this means letting go of relationships, jobs, or expectations that no longer serve us. Other times it involves having difficult conversations, setting firmer boundaries, or making decisions that honor our integrity. When we embrace misalignment as a sign of personal growth, we open ourselves to deeper self-awareness and more fulfilling connections. We learn to trust our intuition, honor our emotions, and make choices that align with who we truly are. Misalignment doesn't have to be a negative experience. It can be a powerful tool for realigning ourselves with our most authentic, empowered selves. Conclusion: realigning with our true purpose. Ultimately, misalignment is not something to fear. It's a natural part of the human experience that signals the need for introspection and growth. Whether it appears in our relationships, careers, or within ourselves, misalignment offers us the chance to realign our lives with our core values, desires, and purpose. Recognizing it as a sign, rather than an obstacle, we can navigate the discomfort with greater clarity and wisdom, using it as a guide toward deeper authenticity, fulfillment, and connection.in. Today's fast-paced, interconnected world, it's easy to lose sight of one of the most important aspects of self-care: the need for clear boundaries. Boundaries are not just about setting limits with others. They are an essential way of protecting our emotional, mental, and physical energy. They allow us to create space for ourselves, to honor our needs, and to maintain our well-being in the face of life's many demands. Yet, despite their importance, boundaries are often overlooked or misunderstood, leading to burnout, resentment, and emotional exhaustion. At its core, a boundary is simply a clear line that defines where one thing ends and another begins. In a personal or relational context, this line determines what is acceptable behavior toward us and what is not. It's about identifying what we are willing to tolerate and what we are not, and then communicating those limits effectively. Boundaries empower us to take control of our lives, safeguard our energy, and preserve our emotional health. Understanding the need for boundaries. Boundaries are critical because they protect our energy from being drained by others, by our circumstances, or even by our own unrealistic expectations. Without boundaries, we often find ourselves overcommitting, overextending, and feeling resentful. We might say yes to every request, neglecting our own needs, desires, and personal time. We might feel responsible for other people's emotions or take on their burdens, leaving us emotionally depleted and overwhelmed. Without boundaries, we may lose sight of ourselves and our own well-being as we become so consumed by others' needs that we forget to care for our own. Boundaries are about more than just saying no. They are about saying yes to ourselves. They are a form of self-respect and self-care, a recognition that our time, energy, and emotions are valuable and should be treated with care. Establishing healthy boundaries is not selfish. It is necessary for maintaining our mental and emotional health. Boundaries allow us to create space in our lives for rest, reflection, and joy, which in turn enables us to show up as our best selves in relationships, work, and other areas of life. As we reflect on the importance of creating and maintaining boundaries, it becomes clear that they are not just about saying no to others. They are about saying yes to ourselves. Boundaries are a form of self-care, self-respect, and self-preservation. They allow us to protect our energy, prioritize what matters most, and create space for meaningful, fulfilling experiences. By embracing boundaries, we reclaim our power, ensuring that we are not overwhelmed by external pressures or demands, but instead able to live authentically, guided by our values and needs. Boundaries are not rigid walls that shut others out. They are flexible, empowering tools that allow us to engage with the world from a place of balance and strength. So let us commit today to honor our own limits, to communicate our needs with clarity, and to protect our energy fiercely. By doing so, we create the foundation for healthier relationships, greater personal fulfillment, and a life that truly reflects who we are. In protecting our boundaries, we ultimately protect the most important thing: our well-being. Thank you.